The order came without a raised voice. Leonard stood in the middle of the operations floor, folder in hand, sleeves slightly rolled. Behind him, Grace closed the last cabinet. Nathan exited the server room, expression unreadable but satisfied. Every eye in the room slowly turned toward him. "This department," Leonard said quietly, "is now under a federal compliance hold." Murmurs rose like steam from a cracked engine. "No field operations," he continued. "Effective immediately. Emergency dispatch will continue. Patrol assignments are frozen. All body cam systems are to remain untouched until forensic review is complete." Someone cursed under their breath. Another officer looked down at their boots. Then Leonard opened the folder. Officer Curtis Dell. Dell stood halfway across the room, arms folded, trying to look unfazed. "You are hereby suspended," Leonard said, "pending federal inquiry into destruction of evidence, procedural misconduct and abuse of authority." The silence sharpened. Dell didn't speak. His jaw tensed, but he didn't argue. Ricky stepped forward, holding a small lockbox. He placed it gently on the desk beside Dell. "Badge. Service weapon." Dell looked at it for a moment, then unholstered his sidearm, set it down, unclipped his badge, did the same. No speech, no protest, just wait. He walked out slow. A few officers glared at Leonard. One shook their head, muttering about power trips, but two others gave small, silent nods. Not approval, recognition. Not everyone in that room agreed, but for the first time they listened. And the culture, the one that had smirked its way through reports and erased its own trail, was beginning to crack. It started as a whisper, a grainy minute-long clip posted by someone who knew someone who got it from someone on the inside. No faces, just a voice. Leonard's voice. Federal protocol. 3 words. Calm, steady, unmistakable. Then the scuffle, the shouting, the thud, gravel, silence. By morning it was everywhere. Facebook feeds, text threads, church bulletin boards. The phrase trended for 48 hours straight. Federal protocol. People weren't just watching, they were remembering. The mayor called a town hall on 2 days' notice. The community showed up like they'd been waiting for years. Packed chairs, standing room only. Some brought folded paper statements. Others brought memories they'd never written down. Leonard stood near the back wall, arms crossed, listening. A teenage boy stepped to the mic. "I got stopped walking home from practice. They asked if the cleats in my bag were stolen. An older woman followed. I filed a complaint. No one ever called me back." A man in his 60s, weathered hands, trembling voice, spoke of a stop in 1989. "They cuffed me over a tail light. I never told my kids. Didn't want them to know that's how the world works." And then Sheriff Ricky Hulban walked to the front. The room went still. He didn't clear his throat, didn't adjust the mic, just looked out across the sea of faces. "I've been in this uniform 31 years, he said, "and I'd be lying if I said I hadn't failed some of you." A few murmurs, a few folded arms. "We didn't know who Mr. Briggs was," Ricky continued. "But that's not the problem." He paused. "The problem is, we didn't care who any of you were." Silence fell again. This time not heavy, not cold, honest. A woman in the 3rd row stood. "Talk is cheap." Ricky nodded once. "Then hold me to it." Behind him, Leonard didn't move, but the town did. Not all at once. Not perfectly, but something had shifted, and this time it wasn't going back. City Hall smelled like lemon polish and nerves. The long oak table had seen ribbon cuttings, budget fights, and empty promises, but never this. Leonard sat at one end. Calm, jacket folded over the back of his chair, a coffee cooling near his left hand. Across from him, Mayor Lanning fidgeted with a pen he hadn't stopped clicking since the meeting began. To Leonard's right, Grace Mendoza flipped through a thick folder, tabs poking out like bookmarks in a story the town hadn't wanted to read. Nathan Cole, silent as ever, scrolled through a laptop beside her, highlighting data like it was evidence in a trial that hadn't yet started. Tamara Wells sat at the center of it all, now officially reassigned as federal liaison. No badge on her chest, but all eyes on her words. Leonard opened his folder. 5 confirmed violations of departmental procedure, he said. 3 cases of falsified reporting, 2 counts of tampered body cam data, and 1 attempted obstruction of a federal investigation. Mayor Lanning's jaw clenched. Are you recommending prosecution? Leonard didn't answer. Grace did. We're recommending a full personnel audit, and the removal of Officer Curtis Dell, effective immediately. The mayor swallowed hard. Dell's one of our most senior. Leonard cut in, quiet but final. He's also the reason this audit began. A beat passed. Then Lanning nodded. I'll issue the termination letter today. Tamara slid a second folder forward. These are the new policies. Mandatory body cam checks. Monthly oversight reviews. Public access to complaint logs. Nathan added, without looking up, digital integrity verification every quarter. Lanning looked around the room. For the first time he didn't try to spin, didn't try to soften it. Understood. Leonard closed his folder. This isn't about punishing one man, he said. It's about not letting the next one do it again. The room didn't erupt. No applause. No dramatic walkout. Just silence. The kind that meant the real work had started. And this time, it was being written in ink, not erased. The square looked the same. Vendors setting up folding tables. A breeze pushing through the trees like it didn't know anything had changed. People moved around him. Some laughing, some lost in thought. No one pointed. No one whispered. And that was fine. Leonard walked with his hands in his coat pockets, pace unhurried. The courthouse was behind him now. The meeting was done. The files submitted. The signatures drying on a page that had taken years too long to write. No cameras followed him. No one asked for a statement. He wasn't a headline. He wasn't trying to be. As he passed the bakery, an older man on a bench looked up. Eyes narrowed for a second, then softened. No words exchanged. Just a look. The kind that says I saw, I know. Near the corner, a group of teenagers stood huddled around a bike. One of them, a boy in a navy hoodie, looked up and met Leonard's eyes. He didn't smile, didn't wave, just nodded once. Simple, direct, respectful. Leonard returned it the same way. And somehow, that exchange meant more than applause ever could. He kept walking, the hum of the town returning around him. A dog barked somewhere. A bell above a diner door rang. Everything ordinary, everything changed. Because this wasn't about being seen. It was about what happens after people stop looking. When the crowd leaves, when the room empties, when the weight settles. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the quiet sound of someone doing the right thing then walking away. If this story moved you, don't just scroll past. Share it. Talk about it. Let it echo in rooms that prefer silence. Because justice doesn't start with noise. It starts with awareness. And the courage to keep watching after the cameras turn off. Subscribe for more true stories of dignity, quiet power, and change that matters. They laughed when he walked in. Alone, quiet, and dressed like he didn't belong. No lawyer. No briefcase. Just a calm black man in a wrinkled suit and steady eyes. But when he placed his badge on the judge's bench, everything stopped. And by the time they realized who he was, it was already too late. The bailiff barely looked up when he called the name. Leonard Briggs? There was a small rustle in the gallery. Just enough to notice. A few heads turned, but no one stood right away. Until a tall black man in a wrinkled grey suit rose from the last row. No briefcase. No tie. Just calm steps and steady eyes. He walked down the aisle like someone who knew exactly where he was supposed to be, but didn't care if anyone else knew it. Two uniformed officers near the back leaned toward each other. That him? One whispered. Gotta be. The other snorted. Look at him. Probably one of those fake sovereign citizens. Gonna tell the judge the Constitution doesn't apply. They chuckled loud enough for the sound to float forward. Leonard didn't turn, didn't blink. Just kept walking. His shoes echoed softly against the tile. One of those sounds that shouldn't mean anything, but suddenly did. The judge, an older white man with a voice like a tired radio announcer, adjusted his glasses and squinted at the file. Mr. Briggs, you're being charged with failure to comply during a lawful stop. Is that correct? Leonard nodded once. That's what the report says. And you have no legal counsel present today. I don't need one. A laugh, short, sharp, from the back. The judge glanced up, eyes flicking toward the uniforms but saying nothing. The kind of glance that carried more habit than authority. All right, the judge sighed, flipping to the next page. This appears to be a minor violation. Let's keep this brief. He looked over the rim of his glasses. Mr. Briggs, is there anything you'd like to say before we proceed? Leonard stepped forward. The courtroom wasn't full, but suddenly it felt crowded, like the walls were listening, like the silence had weight. He didn't reach into a folder. He didn't clear his throat. He just looked at the judge. And in that half-second pause, before anything was said, before anything was revealed, you could feel it. The shift, the smallest ripple before the tide turns. Leonard reached into his coat slowly, not like someone fumbling, not like someone nervous, like someone who had done this before. One of the officers in the back half stood, hand twitching toward his belt. The other leaned forward, whispering something sharp under his breath. Leonard paused, eyes still on the judge. Then carefully, he pulled out a slim laminated badge. No flourish, no announcement, just motion, measured, certain. He walked the last few steps to the bench, and placed it gently on the edge, just enough for the seal to catch the light. "I'm Leonard D. Briggs," he said quietly, "Director of Internal Affairs, Federal Bureau of Investigation." The words hit like glass breaking in slow motion. The courtroom didn't erupt. It collapsed into a stillness so thick it felt like sound had been turned off entirely. The judge didn't blink at first. His mouth opened slightly, then closed again. His hand hovered over the file, like it had forgotten how to turn a page. The two officers in the back, laughter gone, posture stiff, stared at the badge like it was radioactive. The one who had joked about sovereign citizens now looked like he was shrinking inside his uniform. "You're with the FBI," the judge finally managed. Leonard nodded once. "Internal Affairs. I oversee misconduct investigations across the southeastern region, including departments with repeat body cam failures. Departments like the one that pulled me over." A cough from somewhere in the gallery. The sound of someone shifting in their seat. Still no one spoke. The judge glanced at the clerk, then back at Leonard. Would you mind stepping into chambers for a moment?" Leonard didn't move. "I would," he said plainly. "I prefer everything stay on the record." The judge froze again. It wasn't defiance in Leonard's voice. It wasn't anger. It was control, total, quiet, undeniable control. One of the officers stood. "Your Honor, we didn't know who he..." Leonard turned to look at him. Not harshly, just looking. "You didn't ask," he said. That was all. And still, it was more than enough. It was just after 10:30 p.m. when the red and blue lights bloomed behind him like a warning. Leonard slowed the rental car, a silver Camry with nothing remarkable about it, and pulled to the shoulder off Bayou View Drive. A streetlight buzzed above, throwing sharp shadows across the dash. He didn't sigh, didn't mutter. He just reached into his coat, clicked a small audio recorder, and set it on the passenger seat. The door mirrors showed two officers stepping out, both white, mid-30s. One bald flashlight already in hand, the other with a clipboard, and something in his walk that said he was ready to prove something. The knock on the window wasn't polite. It was fast, loud, intentional. License and registration. Leonard rolled it down halfway. "Can I ask the reason for the stop?" "You didn't signal during that last lane change," the bald one snapped. Leonard nodded, reaching calmly for his wallet. "Pretty sure I did, but okay." The second officer appeared at the passenger side. "Where you headed tonight?" Leonard paused. "That's federal protocol. I'm not at liberty to say." "That did it." The first officer leaned closer. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" Leonard kept his tone flat. "It means I can't share my destination due to the nature of my work." "Oh, so you're special." The flashlight moved closer to his face. "Step out of the vehicle." "I haven't refused anything," Leonard said. "I've complied. You're giving me attitude. I'm giving you my rights. Out. Now." The passenger door opened. The second officer reached across the seat. Leonard didn't resist, but they still grabbed his arm like he had. In a blur of movement and gravel, he was forced to the ground, knees in his back, hands twisted behind him. "You think you're above the law?" one shouted. Leonard didn't answer. He kept his eyes on a crack in the pavement, listening, not just to their words, but to their tone, their rhythm, the way they breathed. When one of them called it in, refused to identify, verbally combative, he memorized every word, not with anger, with precision. The moment the lights flashed behind him, Leonard clicked the recorder in his coat pocket. No one saw it. No one ever did. It was muscle memory by now, a habit carved from too many headlines and too few consequences. A quiet insurance policy for men who looked like him, especially in the South. As the officers yelled, pulled, twisted, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The recorder caught everything. Tone, timing, the silence between shouts. What it didn't catch, body cam footage, because they never turned them on. At the station they didn't ask him who he was. They didn't ask why he was in town. They didn't ask anything that mattered. They took his license, logged his name, and tossed him in holding like a bag of laundry. No phone call, no supervisor, no formality, just paperwork, and a slammed cell door. Briggs, Leonard, Montgomery, Alabama. One officer read aloud, probably fake. The other grunted, run it anyway. Bet he's got priors. Leonard sat on the metal bench, back against cold tile, staring at the wall, not in defeat, not even in thought, just waiting. The flickering light above buzzed, like it didn't know how to die. Down the corridor, a janitor's mop sloshed in slow, steady arcs, the kind of rhythm that made the night feel longer than it was. Hours passed. No lawyer, no fingerprinting, no Miranda rights read again, just silence. And not the peaceful kind, the kind that tried to convince you that no one was coming. But Leonard wasn't scared. He was documenting everything. Leonard stood just a few feet from the bench. The badge still rested where he'd left it, catching slivers of light, silent but undeniable. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I was pulled over at 10:36 p.m. on Bayou View Drive, he said evenly. I complied with the stop, provided identification, asked one question. He paused, and was pulled from my car without cause. Detained, denied a phone call. No Miranda, no supervisor, no rights acknowledged. The courtroom held its breath. I recorded the entire interaction. I did so because this isn't the first time it's happened to someone who looks like me. But unlike most, I had documentation, and a badge. He turned slightly, just enough to see the two officers seated in the back. My body was shoved to the ground. My arm was twisted behind my back. I was mocked while in custody. Not one officer asked who I was. Not one turned on a camera. The judge leaned back, his face a little paler now. Mr. Briggs, are you requesting action? Leonard nodded once. Yes. I'm requesting an immediate dismissal of all charges, and the temporary suspension of the two officers involved, pending federal review. The bald officer stood halfway up. Your Honor, with all due respect, we didn't know who he. Leonard turned to him, slowly, calmly. You didn't care who I was, he said. That's the problem. The words landed like a pin drop in a room full of glass. No shouting, no threat, just truth, sharp, quiet, and heavier than any uniform in the room. The phone slammed down harder than it needed to. Sheriff Ricky Halburn stood behind his desk, jaw tight, hands on his hips. The walls of his office felt smaller than usual, like the air had thickened. He turned to his deputy. You mean to tell me we arrested a damn FBI agent, and no one bothered to check credentials? Tamara Wells didn't flinch. She stood near the door, arms crossed, watching him unravel. He handed over a license, she said evenly. Not a fake one, not even a refusal, clean ID. Montgomery, Alabama. They ran it, still brought him in. Ricky paced. They said he got combative. He asked a question. They said he resisted. He didn't. Ricky stopped, his eyes locked with hers. You read the report, she nodded. Twice. And, it reads like someone trying to bury something. Silence, not the kind that settled, the kind that built. Ricky sat down, hard, rubbed his forehead like he could push the headache back into his skull. Jesus. Internal affairs. Tamara moved toward the window, looking out over the lot. Officers were going about their usual routines, coffee in hand, radios on their shoulders, like nothing had happened. But something had, and it wasn't going away. I've been looking into past complaints, she said without turning around. Ricky glanced up. Why? Because this isn't the first time we've heard about body cams malfunctioning. Ricky exhaled slowly. You saying we've got a pattern? She turned. I'm saying Leonard Briggs wasn't a fluke. And for the first time that morning, Ricky didn't argue. Because deep down, he already knew. Tamara sat alone in the records room. The hum of the fluorescent light, overhead the only sound besides the steady click of her mouse. She wasn't supposed to be here this early, but the login she'd borrowed, quietly borrowed, gave her access to a year's worth of internal review reports. She scrolled. Camera error. Footage unavailable. Device did not activate. Every single one labeled equipment failure. Every single one filed under the same officer name. And almost every single stop involved a black or Latino driver. It wasn't a glitch. It was a pattern dressed up as coincidence. She pulled a file from December. Young man, 22, pulled over 3 blocks from home, claimed he was pushed against the hood, and told to stop acting nervous. Complaint marked unfounded. Camera listed as non-functional. Same story. Different face. She opened another. Then another. Same. Tamara leaned back in her chair, jaw tightening. She knew what she was looking at. She just didn't want to believe it had stacked this high. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. This is Briggs. His voice was calm, direct. I hear you're looking where no one else wants to. Tamara didn't deny it. You have access to things I don't, and you have eyes inside. A pause. Then meet me tonight. After hours. Backlot. Bring what they think is buried. She did. Under a quiet sky. She handed him a sealed folder. Internal memos. Timestamp anomalies. Archived emails. Leonard didn't open it right away. He just held it for a moment. Like it weighed more than paper. It's not just that they didn't ask who I was, he said. It's that they didn't think they needed to. Tamara nodded slowly. They didn't break the system, she said. They followed it. And now, together, they were going to pull it apart, one report at a time. Brian didn't like drama. He liked systems that worked, servers that hummed quietly, and keyboards that only made noise when he was typing. But this wasn't routine maintenance. Tamara's message had come through the internal chat at 6:13 a.m. Can you check who accessed the body cam logs from May 14th? Briggs case. No explanation, no emoji, just a question heavy, with the kind of weight that made Brian sit up straighter in his chair. He ran the trace. Login timestamps, IP logs, access credentials. At first nothing stood out. Then he saw it. 2 entries, hours apart. The other at 7:04 the next morning. Same file path. Same camera log. Accessed under Officer Curtis Dell's credentials. The last line stopped him cold. Entry flagged. Delete. Manual override. Review bypassed. Brian leaned back, hands hovering over the keyboard. He stared at the screen for a full minute, then quietly hit print. The log sheet slid out in clean rows. Dates, times, names. He folded it once, twice, tucked it into a plain envelope, and walked it down the hallway. Tamara was at her desk, eyes red-rimmed, posture locked. When he handed it over, he didn't speak, just waited. She opened it slowly, read it twice, her jaw set like concrete. He deleted it. Brian nodded once. Tamara looked up. You sure no one else accessed it? Brian's voice was low. Only him. And now me. She leaned back, staring at nothing in particular. The noise of the department carried on behind them, phones ringing, chatter rising and falling. But around her, silence. Not the safe kind. The kind that meant people were starting to realize. The cracks weren't just in the system, they were in the people sworn to uphold it. The front desk officer nearly dropped his coffee. Leonard walked in like he had every right to, because he did. Same wrinkled suit, same steady walk, a manila folder in one hand, nothing in the other. No badge flash, no press behind him, just presence. Agent Briggs, the officer stammered. We weren't expecting. I'm not here for a meeting, Leonard said calmly. I'm here to confirm a pattern. He kept walking. No one stopped him. They stepped aside. The hallway quieted as he passed. Voices dipped. Glances followed. A few uniforms stood frozen by the vending machine, unsure if they should keep chewing or salute. He didn't look left or right. Just one knock on the sheriff's door. Then he opened it. Ricky Halburn looked up from behind a mess of papers, eyes puffy from too little sleep and too much damage control. Leonard stepped inside and placed the folder on the desk. I assume you got my office's email. Ricky nodded slowly. We're reviewing the... Leonard didn't let him finish. I also got your access logs. He tapped the folder once. Officer Dell entered the bodycam system manually, twice, then deleted the file from May 14th, before my arraignment. Ricky didn't move. Leonard's voice stayed calm, but it filled the room. You're not investigating this, Sheriff. A pause. I am. Ricky blinked once. You want Dell's badge? Leonard nodded. By end of day. He turned to leave, then stopped at the door. Also, he said without looking back, you'll want to check how many complaints he signed off on personally. Then he walked out. Same pace, same quiet step. But behind him, the silence didn't feel like fear anymore. It felt like reckoning. They came without sirens. 2 black SUVs rolled into the rear lot, just after sunrise. Quiet, clean, deliberate. No fanfare, no shouting, just presence. Leonard stepped out first. Same calm expression, same worn suit. Behind him came Grace Mendoza, compliance strategist, posture sharp enough to cut glass, and Nathan Cole, digital forensics expert, already tapping into a secure tablet before his boots even hit the pavement. Inside the station, the mood shifted fast. Some officers tried to act like nothing was happening, coffee in hand, keyboards clicking, but no one laughed, no one joked. They just watched. Leonard didn't stop at the front desk. He walked straight through. Grace peeled off toward records. I need disciplinary files, all of them, 5 years back. Nathan disappeared down the hall toward RT. Server access, admin level. No one argued. No one even asked who gave the order, because they knew who had. In a back room near operations, Leonard met Tamara. She already had a laptop open, tabs stacked like bricks, complaint logs, camera reports, personnel files. Most hadn't been touched in years. These, she said, eyes never leaving the screen, all follow the same pattern: aggression, camera failure, internal closure. Repeat. Leonard nodded. That's not oversight. That's design. Down the hall, Grace cracked open a filing cabinet and frowned. This training documentation, she asked a nearby lieutenant. It's 4 years out of date. He didn't respond, just stared at the floor. In the server room, Nathan plugged in quietly. Within minutes, he was reconstructing deleted video segments from backup archives the department didn't know still existed. No noise, no threats, just method. They weren't there to make headlines. They were there to uncover everything.